It's Cinemassacre's Monster Madness around the world. Cinema in Spain has a very similar history to Russian cinema. Both were introduced to films by the Lumiere brothers around the same time in 1895. Spain has had a huge influence on Hollywood with famous Spanish films like Pan's Labyrinth, actors and actresses such as Antonio Banderas and Penelope Cruz, and many films produced in Spain are in English, like The Others starring Nicole Kidman and The Machinist with Christian Bale. Today, we're going to talk about REC. And if you haven't heard of REC, you most likely have heard of Quarantine. Quarantine is an exact remake that came out a year later in 2008. They're almost identical with a few name differences and plot ending. The version I watched was dubbed in English because that's the only one I could find on Amazon, and it was called REC ESP. If it meant Espanol, that was incorrect. And unfortunately, with found footage films, I don't think it works at all with dubbing. It's kind of like if you're watching documentary footage of a tragedy, but it's dubbed, so that would mean the actors who are dubbing it have to recreate the tone of that trauma when we know they aren't really experiencing it for themselves. Kind of like the voice acting in the original Resident Evil.
You were almost a Jill sandwich.
You're right.
It's just kind of weird. But if you need to use subtitles, you're going to be confused because the dub and sub barely match. So basically, avoid that version. You gotta find it subtitled or speak Spanish. REC plays off simple fears that are all very plausible in the real world. And that's what I personally found scary about the film. It focuses on claustrophobia, panic, turning the building into a biohazard zone, and a highly contagious zombie virus that's similar to rabies. Unlike 28 Days Later's Rage virus, this one doesn't infect as fast, but still has the same primal and vicious attack scenes. A reporter named Angela Vidal and her cameraman Pablo are reporting on a late-night news segment called While You're Sleeping and are filming firefighters on a graveyard shift. They get a call from an apartment complex that a resident is behaving aggressively. When they arrive, an elderly woman in her apartment is covered in blood and disoriented like a wild animal. She attacks one of the police officers and rips his neck apart, and then begins plucking off the survivors. The disorganization and lack of communication builds the panic amongst everyone, but again, the voice dubbing just kills the mood. I do get tired of the shaky camera stuff and the cliche of the obnoxious camera operator. It always begs the question, why are they still filming? But I guess if not, we wouldn't have a movie. So many times characters get up in the camera operator's face to tell them to stop recording, which seems like it's meant to show that they're aware of the cliche, but for me, it only draws attention to it. Even since the beginning, Angela urges Pablo to film everything, thinking this will be the biggest scoop of her career. It's kind of like April O'Neil. What a story! Eventually, the survivors dwindle down to Angela and Pablo running up to the top floor attic. They discover a ton of newspaper clippings about a girl being possessed by demons and a conspiracy with the Vatican. They also find a recording where the doctors took the girl and her possession was really a virus that mutated and that she must be killed. Now jumping back to Quarantine real quick, in the same scene the difference is that instead of a supernatural demonic basis for this virus, the virus was stolen from a military base by a doomsday cult leader. The co-writer of REC expressed his dissatisfaction with the finale change and felt that by taking away the religious theme, it lost a very important part to the story. Honestly, it's a case of cultural differences. If the American zombie movies don't have the government involved in some super secret conspiracy, is it even an American zombie film? The Vatican works as the same catalyst, so I can appreciate it, though I'm not a huge fan. I guess I'm just burned out from seeing too many movies about viral infections that turn people into zombies, and with found footage, it's hit or miss with me. But what I do know is that it was a big success, leading to REC 2, REC 3 Genesis, and REC 4 Apocalypse. And as mentioned, it was even remade in the US in 2008 titled Quarantine, followed by Quarantine 2 Terminal. So it certainly made an impact.